There are moments that divide time, moments where the world stops talking and starts listening. This was one of them. It was a Tuesday night in Manhattan, just another political talk show. The audience was live. The cameras were rolling. America tuned in expecting debates, jabs, and headlines. But what they got was a lesson in dignity. On one side sat Captain Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, calm, poised, invited to discuss African sovereignty and America's influence in West Africa. Across from him, Karoline Leavitt, a fast-talking former political spokesperson, known for snark and sound bites. The producers planned a civil conversation. It didn't go that way. Traoré spoke gently, explaining Africa's long history of being spoken for, not listened to. He didn't blame, he didn't accuse, he simply told the truth. But truth makes some people uncomfortable. Karoline leaned forward, smiled like she was doing him a favor, and then she said it. "Sit down, boy." The studio fell silent. The host's mouth hung open. Audiences at home froze. Twitter ignited. The words echoed instantly across social media, but Traoré didn't react how she expected. He didn't flinch, didn't yell, didn't even blink. He just looked at her, then slowly stood up, not in defiance, not in rage, but in quiet, unshakable power. He walked to the front of the stage, looked out at the stunned crowd, and said in a voice so soft everyone had to lean in, "I come from a place where boys become men before they learn to dream." No one moved. "You can call me boys here," he said, turning to her. "But where I come from, boys carry nations. They lead when no one else will. They fight so others can eat." Karoline's smirk faded. The audience could feel it. This wasn't going to be a debate. This was going to be a reckoning. Traoré took a breath. "I buried my father under an open sky," he continued. "No flag, no cameras, just dirt, and my mother's cries." An elderly black woman in the front row wiped tears from her cheeks. "He was killed in a coup, backed by outsiders," Traoré said. "So when you say sit down, boy, do you mean the child who watched his village burn? The child who studied by candlelight because colonialism stole the power and never brought it back?" You could hear sniffles across the room. Even the host looked choked up. And then Traoré said something that shifted the entire energy. "You don't have to like me, but you will not erase me." A single clap echoed from the back of the room, then another. Then the whole room stood, but not for drama, for truth. Karoline looked around, disoriented. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Then Traoré said, "My mother walked miles with blistered feet to sell firewood. She skipped meals so I wouldn't go hungry. She never said, 'Sit down.' She said, 'Stand up, even when it hurts.'" A girl in the crowd turned to her dad and whispered, "He sounds like you." Grown men began to cry. Karoline's face turned red, and yet Traoré stayed calm. "So when someone like you calls me boy," he said, "you insult every mother who's ever carried a nation on her back." The silence was sacred. Then a decorated U.S. veteran on the panel stood. "I served in Liberia," he said, voice trembling. "I've seen what boys like him face. What you said wasn't debate. It was humiliation, and it dishonored everyone I served beside." He turned to Traoré and offered his hand. "Thank you for reminding us what leadership looks like." The audience erupted. Karoline, she couldn't believe what she was seeing, so she snapped again. "Oh, come on. Are we seriously pretending he's a saint?" The crowd recoiled. "It's not about sainthood," Traoré said. "It's about humanity." Then a young black student stood in the audience, her voice shaking. "No one's asking you to apologize for being American, but you should apologize for being cruel." Karoline went pale. As Traoré sat down, he wasn't triumphant. He wasn't angry. He was composed, unshaken. Karoline tried to save face. "This is America. We're allowed to disagree. Traoré leaned forward. Disagreement is healthy, but disrespect, that kills the conversation. And without conversation, there's no understanding. The audience clapped. Slow, deep, reverent. Then Traoré did something unexpected. He pulled a torn letter from his pocket. This was written by my younger brother, 2 days before he died in a protest for food. The room held its breath. He wrote, "Big brother, if I die, promise me they won't forget why." People wept. Even the crew stopped moving. "So no," Traoré said, holding the letter to the light. "I won't sit down because I carry the memory of those who were forced to kneel." Karoline had no comeback. For once, she was silent. The host asked quietly, "Captain Traoré, what would you say to the American people watching?" He looked into the camera. "You don't need to know where Burkina Faso is to understand dignity. You just have to know what it feels like to be unseen. I don't ask for pity. I ask for eyes that see." Then a camera operator, off script, stepped onto the stage, shook his hand and whispered, "Thank you for reminding me what honor looks like." And just when the room thought it couldn't get more emotional, a screen lit up. It was a live feed of a little girl in a hospital bed in Chicago, holding a crayon drawing of the US and Burkina Faso flags side by side. "Hi, Captain," she said. "You remembered me?" Traoré's lips trembled. "You said I was brave," she added. "But tonight, you were the bravest." The audience broke. Grown adults sobbed. Even the host whispered off mic, "My daughter's the same age." Traoré placed a hand over his heart. "You give me strength," he told her. "You are the future I fight for." She beamed. "And next time someone says, 'Sit down, boys,' I'll tell them, 'Stand up,' like Captain Traoré." The feed cut, and the audience didn't just clap. They rose, because this wasn't a segment, it was history. Later that night, in his hotel, Traoré received a note from the National Civil Rights Museum. Tonight, it read, "You didn't just speak for yourself, you spoke for every soul ever told to sit down. We are preparing a permanent exhibition titled Dignity Under Fire. We'd be honored to feature your story." He whispered, "Not for me, for all of them." And 1 week later, Karoline returned to that studio. No makeup, no cameras, just a note. She handed it to a producer. Traoré read it at a press conference. "I said, 'Sit down, boy,' but you stood taller than any man I've ever seen. I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope my daughter grows up learning from your strength, not my ignorance." The press room fell silent. Traoré looked up and said, "We don't heal through silence. We heal through courage." And she just showed some. From that day forward, even critics began calling him something new, the man who made America listen. The studio returned to regular programming. But one thing never changed. There's now a single empty chair on that stage. No label, no spotlight, just presence. And everyone who sees it knows what it means. It means grace over anger, truth over theatrics, humanity over hate. Traoré would later speak at the United Nations. But it wasn't his speech that went viral. It was what he held up. A child's crayon flag, red, white and green, beside red, white and blue. This flag was drawn by a little girl in a hospital. He said, "She believed I stood for something good. That means more than any medal." Then, looking into the camera one last time, he said, "America, don't just clap. Change, call to action." If that story gave you chills, if you felt something shift inside, drop a comment. Was it the letter from his brother, the mother in the audience, that little girl? Tell us what moment hit you the hardest. And if you believe that dignity still matters, subscribe. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we tell the ones that change how you see the world, and remind you, never sit down when it's time to stand up.